Hello, everybody. I hope you all can hear me, and I hope everything else comes through just as well. Welcome to a very special Year in Review Scripts on Saturdays. I'm your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me tonight is Gums 1983 and Jake of 52 Movies a Year. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy New Year, and how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's see here. I'm just trying to fix a little bit of this because we're on the fly with the people here. So yeah, I see the top part of the stream is cut off. So let's go ahead and fix that.
Happy New Year to you, Jacob.
Hey, Happy New Year to you.
Good. Did you have a very good one?
Well, that's good.
Did you have a good one?
I did.
Excellent.
Vacation.
Oh, very nice. Where did you go?
I'm sorry, what?
Where did you go? Did you go somewhere nice?
I stayed home. That's why it was so good.
Ah, yes.
Went across the street and visited, and that's it.
Yes, I enjoy those type of vacations myself as well.
Yeah. You do anything special?
Well, Hogmanay in Scotland. So I went to I took my 7-year-old daughter to a Ceilidh, which is a kind of Scottish thing. We bring the bells in with bagpipes and drinks and food and whatnot. It was enjoyable. It was good. It was very good.
That was good. Looking forward to this.
Same.
Year went by pretty fast.
Yeah, it did. So sorry about that, guys. Just trying to figure out the technical difficulties here, but yeah, so happy to see you all here. So all right, let's get started, gentlemen. This is the Year in Review. We last year we read 52 screenplays. 52 screenplays. So what I'd like to know is would you share with us some of the ones that you found the most memorable, whether they were good or bad, just the ones that stuck around in your head, and a little bit of thoughts here. Because again, this is the first time that you two are on the same stream together. This is other co-hosts may or may not be stopping in. Everybody has the link to pop by to share their thoughts. It's just going to be a short show, but a quick one to talk about, what we remember, what we read, and we'll be taking a look at some of the screenplays that we'll be reviewing for the rest of this year. So throw it out to the panel, Jake or Gums. What screenplay stuck in your head, whether it be good or bad, that just for some reason just won't leave your thoughts?
I'll pass that to Jake.
You know what? The first one is Madden. And maybe it's because it was the first one, but that was a great one to start with. Because I like the biopic, and it's cool that it's being picked up. Just everything about that one's pretty cool.
I'm the exact same.
Cool. Oh, right. So Madden, yeah, that's the one that the first script we reviewed actually on the very first show, which also happened to be January 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And that one's going into production with good old Nick Cage.
That blows me away. Nick Cage.
It does indeed. Mm-hmm. I mean, as a Scotsman, knowing very little about the NFL, I enjoyed it. I would watch it. I would go spend my hard-earned money and watch it because the script itself, it will be rewritten, of course, not much, but I enjoyed it just based on the fact that it was a good script. You could sit and watch it and enjoy it. You know, it was one of those kind of things. That's what took me away from it. Was obviously you guys being Northern American, completely different to me. But I look at it and go, yep, absolutely, I would pay money to see that. And then next thing you know, BBC website, there are other websites available, who said, you know, it's getting made by Nick Cage.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one heck of a weird makeup job. How far will they go to make him look like John Madden?
I mean, they made Eddie Murphy look like a woman, so I'm sure it's not that hard.
No, I'm definitely sure they can do it, but I'm just wondering, like, what level of transformation are they going to try and pull off with such a story? Because remember, this Madden isn't just a story about him figuring out how to, work with these programmers at Electronic Arts to make this one video game. It's also there's a sub story about him trying to like make a connection with his kid. And I'm wondering how, because this script is definitely going to undergo some extensive rewrites before it hits film, and I'm like curious to see how much it's going to change and how much it's going to stay the same. With that being said, one of the other scripts that stuck out for me, which I thought was actually not too bad, was Chaperones. If you don't remember, that's the script where the dad he's not really a loser, but he's just this type of guy who's not succeeding well with his daughter as she's exiting adolescence and getting into adulthood. And he's on the chaperone, and that's when like the end of the world comes to this park that he's on the field trip with, and he ends up kind of falling for the mother of the boy that his daughter is dating at the moment. And it's all about him trying to man up for what for these crazy, consequences of these weird demon creatures that are terrorizing this national park. Now that one, unfortunately, as far as I've heard, is not going into production anytime soon. But I thought it was a nice, charming story, good daddy-daughter thing. Had some interesting comedy to it. I like the fact that he's terrified of his kid growing up too fast when he himself is still acting a little immature, and I think that was a pretty decent thing. Anything else that you guys want to discuss before we get into the upcoming schedule and roster of interesting scripts that are representative of 2024?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the one. There was a couple that, as I started to read them, if I'd hit one or two lines in the script that just had lines that I would go, the stereotypical stuff of, typical woke language, and I don't, it was funny. At first I would kind of tune them out and go, oh, well, I'll just listen to the show. And it was interesting to have a predisposed thought process based on one thing, and then to listen to you and the other host discuss it and go, oh, okay, there are redeeming qualities. That was one thing throughout this year that I kind of started pushing myself past. But then also I realized if it didn't hook me in the first few pages, it was a slog to get through unless it was my week to host.
Yeah, well, welcome to the world of the story analyst, the producer, the actor, the director. Like sometimes you get sent a script and you're like, oh man, if this doesn't, it hasn't hooked me in 5 pages or 10 pages. You're just you feel like you're doing a chore as opposed to being taken away by a story, and that's one of the big hurdles that a lot of screenwriters have to overcome is how do you do that hook? Now, when I started out, it was to get their attention within the first 10 pages. Then after about 10 years, it was you have to hook them in the first 5 pages. And now the way it's set up is you got to hook them on that first page. Like if you can't get them interested on that first page, you're the likelihood of them getting to the finish line and wanting to, support that script is getting further and further away. And it's really it's a double-edged sword because at one point it's challenging the writer to try and do a really good job of capturing the excitement of whatever this concept might be. But at the same time, you're also doing it at the expense of trying to tell a nurturing type of story. It's like, it's all about the pizzazz, the show, the wow, the bang factor. Yeah. You don't get a chance to do something that would be like, I don't know, like The Godfather. That one doesn't start off with a huge action set piece moment, right? It's a very intimate type of story. And if you were to read that on the page, you probably, by today's standards, a lot of people will probably toss it. And you're just like, well, you can't toss The Godfather. It's such a brilliant and story of a man's being corrupted by the very thing his father spent years trying to protect them from being involved in. Conversely, you have something like, say, Jaws, where that starts out at a beach party and a woman is going skinny dipping with her boyfriend who gets drunk and passes out, and then she's snagged by a shark and vanishes. I mean, that's a different type of hook. So, yeah, like I'm just, this is the stuff that we have to deal with now. A lot of the scripts that we read this year did not have that huge, you know, within the first 2-3 pages hooks your attention. But then sometimes it kind of delivered. And one of the scripts that I think representative this was Palette. Now, for those of you that might not remember, Palette was about this woman who has a color rendering index spectrum with her eye so that she can see colors more accurately, more vibrantly than anyone else. And then she gets whisked away into this kind of fashion, you know, fashion company that determines what colors do what and how they respond to emotions and everything. And this one was definitely a slower film, but it was really interesting and intricate, and it kind of had a dark edge to it. And I think that something like that would work on the independent scene as well, like a very niche type of art film. And that one doesn't really scream, you know, studio advertisement, studio run with big theatrical release. But it's definitely would be the type of movie like, oh yeah, you stumble on that, you talk about it as a hidden gem. So those are kind of the things that stuck out to my mind.
I mean, there's a few scripts I've read, and there's a few scripts that we've done script, and I've said in many of them, you know, I can't see getting picked up by like a Warner Brothers or a Paramount, but I can see a Netflix or an Amazon picking it up. And that's on top of that kind of small, but maybe no Amazon or Netflix, but you know, I think we're going to see that some of these scripts that we've went through, and obviously the ones that we're going to go through, will start getting picked up by independents because, you know, they need that. So maybe newer idea, even though it's kind of stealing from other old types of movies. I do apologise, I've got a sore throat, so I do apologise, everyone, okay? I'm having like, you know, throat soothers.
No, it's okay. It happens.
So I believe that. And there was one that we read, the vampire one. I remember vampires when they were scary. Do you know what I mean? When like vampires were scary, you know, vampire. I read that script and I enjoyed it. Me and you sat beforehand and I told you I enjoyed it. You're like, well, you know, whatever, you know, there's bits and bobs.
Blood Rush, yeah.
On Rush, me and you had that conversation. And then you eventually came round to my way thinking, but you kind of went, well, you know what? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Me being a normal paying person in the community, do you know what I mean? I'm a normal person that I'll go to the cinema and watch whatever I like. And I enjoy that. I really enjoyed Madden. I will go and watch that. And I will give a review on this channel about Madden. But as a normal Scottish person, I may add. But no, seriously, there's a lot of scripts. And I'll echo what Jake said as well. Right, as, you know, the wording's different, you know, that we're used to. You know, it's that end of that kind of era, shall we say. Is it good to be ended? That's up to other people to decide. It's not for me to decide. But as we're moving through, the years going through, you know, there was a couple of duff scripts, let's be honest. There were a few where you went, you know what, I'd maybe go back to writing books, or maybe, you know, whatever you want to do, go do something else with your life, you know what I mean? And there was a few of them you went, actually, do you know what? If they get rewritten, there's money right there. Madden, you know, other ones. And that's what I found this whole year is my knowledge and my understanding and my love of movies, which I've got a big love of movies, has gotten better because when I start watching a film now, I'm going, that doesn't sound right. Like, you shouldn't really say that. Like, that doesn't sound right in that context. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're talking about you're getting a different level of engagement out of what you're watching as opposed to it just being a little bit of white noise, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And no, I completely agree. Like that's always the big. I mean, the first day of college when we went to the writing program for film and television, they said the one thing that's going to happen to you is as you start learning and understanding the methods of storytelling, you're either going to lose the magic and see everything in its finer details and be jaded by it, or you're going to be excited by how it works. And every time you see something that works well, it just kind of gets your heart racing, and you're just pulled into the story. And it's all going to be dictated more so on your personal taste as opposed to like the logic of the storytelling itself, which is always usually the best thing you want. Like, yeah, there's objectively illogical, terrible things, but sometimes they just hit all the right beats of the taste that you prefer, and you're like, yeah, that's what I enjoy. And people call that a guilty pleasure. I don't think you should be guilty for it, but you know, you like what you like. But at the same time, it's always going to be a little bit more. It's going to give you a little bit more to it because you're not looking at these as story as, oh, this occupies my time for 2 hours. You're looking as like, well, someone put an effort in behind this script. Ideally, they had something they want to say, and how well did they manage to say it? And what we saw over this last season is a good handful of people really knew how to deliver what they wanted to say, and then the rest kind of got lost in the weeds. For instance, like last week's script, the Assembly Required, first script of 2024 we read. The script was essentially telling the writer, like, hey, these two characters are boring. Maybe we should not spend time with them. And then a hard lesson for writers to learn is that sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. You think that, a certain element is very important and prevalent in the spine of your script, and you keep it in there, but you're failing to see that, or you're failing to acknowledge that you're having more fun with other characters, and they should be the ones that kind of are driving the story as opposed to the other ones that you've established. And the only assured way that you can actually correct that is by having other people read your work and giving you notes and letting you share those ideas. And maybe they'll say something that reaches that little voice in the back of your head that was trying to tell you, hey, stop making this decision with your story and go this direction. But you listen to that voice as a negative point of doubt as opposed to a potential to explore something great. So with that being said, guys, for those of you out in the chat listening and listening on later in the recording, the official season 1 playlist of Scripts on Saturdays has been solidified. It is there every episode, all the live shows and all the previously recorded shows that debuted on that time due to holidays or traveling are there for you, so you can watch them all in order and share your thoughts on that as well. Now, one of the fun aspects that we've done on the show this year is we've introduced the polls over on the Patreon there. So all the patrons there get to vote whether they greenlight or pass the script that we'll be reviewing the following Saturday. And if you want to know what that script might be, and maybe you can join the Patreon, or you can just reach out to me on the social media network. I'll be happy to share that with you. But the voting is a Patreon privilege aspect of it. However, so if that's something you want to participate in, please consider doing that. It supports the show. Otherwise, just keep popping by every Saturday and listening to our thoughts here. With that being said, let's take a look at the 2024 blacklist and what we'll be seeing there. Now, unfortunately, because of the setup that I have, I can't share the screen because, as you probably have visually seen out there in the chat, messing with the windows, it's a little bit tricky. But we will go through what we have. So the blacklist came out a little later than normal last year, but it was a huge list. Like it had 83 screenplays placed on the list last year. That is up by about 10 of last year and typically most years. Now, funnily enough, the same guy that wrote Good Boy, Good Dog, sorry, the number 1 script from last year, which was a really great story about a little dog that's trying to help this woman who's been kidnapped by his owner.
The goodest boy. He's the goodest boy. Come on.
Yeah, it was a very good script, and it came in first place. The same writer, Travis Braun, got first place again with a comedy called One Night Only, which is like The Purge, but it's for premarital sex. So I'll read you guys the log line, and you share with me some of your thoughts.
None of us know about that. Yeah, none of us know about that at all.
It's called One Night Only, and it's two strangers scramble to find someone to sleep with on the one night of the year when premarital sex is legal. What are your initial thoughts to such a pitch like that, gentlemen?
I want to do that script. I think that'll be funny. I'll do that script. No problem.
Yeah, that would be a guilty pleasure.
That's that. I think that's going to be a panel on that one script. I think there's going to be 4 or 5 years sitting here talking about that one. Like that sounds good. That does.
Oh, if that's one that has like the second thoughts, more some of those second thoughts parts on, I'm all for it because I like talking about screenplays, especially. Now this one is interesting because the Travis, the one he wrote before, was more of a drama. Now we're getting into comedy. Comedy is very difficult to nail, as you've all listened to some of the previous comedies we've read so far. So the real question is, can Travis actually pull it off? Did he get the first place because it's very, very funny, or is it more like the concept is so good that people thought, let's get some heat behind it so that someone can buy it and help workshop it into what it's supposed to be? So I mean that's the one that came in first. Now we'll be reviewing that script later on this year. I don't review them in numerical order of popularity on there. I kind of go a little random, so it keeps things all spiced up and a little less predictable. But yeah, like I think that's kind of an interesting concept. Like, how do you? I mean, just thinking about it in your head, as you know, you're the studio executive or any producer, what have you. You're like, okay, so we have a screenplay that's taken place in a world where 364 days out of the year, everybody agrees not to have premarital sex, even if they're dating. What type of world would that be? Right?
Sounds like the UK right now, honestly. But,
very Puritan.
Indeed, yes.
Which is weird because I mean, Europe is not a very Puritan-like culture.
Well, we'll leave that there. That's for others to discuss, not us tonight. But, Jake, you want to jump in first?
You know what? I think that's good that it's number one. Hopefully, because the guy can prove that he can write.
Yeah.
But it kind of signals that maybe people are pulling their heads out of their butts, you know, and willing to go. Let's embrace humor. Let's embrace the things that people want to see. I mean, somebody might be turned off by the script and say, I don't want to see that. But a show like that, if it was funny enough, wouldn't have to be like a streaming service. It could have some high A-list stars and not be as raunchy. You know, it could go any different direction, you know, barring what the script shows.
Right.
But you could get some big names on that because people just have fun. I'm glad to see people embracing something they've been pushing away.
I've got a cracking one for you. This is the return of the Stifler. This generation's American Pie. Our generation, Pie.
Hey,
this is this generation's American Pie. You bring back the Stifler, and don't call him the Stifler, call him, I don't know,
whatever.
The Stud, or whatever. But everybody, we recognise Sean William Scott because reasons, right? The teenagers, the adolescents might recognise him potentially. You know, it's on TV pretty much all the time anyway. That could be the American Pie. That could be the new sort of comedic genius like that. I mean, obviously they won't get away with what American Pie got away with. I mean, let's be honest, somebody's not going to fornicate with a pie. Let's be fair. But once we read the script, there will be. I suspect there will be several others that will have thoughts on this. And my thought, when what you just said there was Jennifer Hudson and what's his name? In a Mercedes, American Pie 2. There you go.
That would be amazing. I mean, listen, this is the type of stuff that a good log line gets you thinking about because it helps you set some expectations. Now, if that log line is way better than the script, then you're in for a disappointment because now it's no longer you're just having a harder time judging the merits on the script, and you're now like, well, but I would have way more fun with this idea. But that's usually, you know, one of the difficult things to do. So this is I would say it's an interesting premise. Definitely has an air of cleverness to it because I like the idea of a purge world, but instead of murder, it's getting down. And I'm curious to see how he addresses the people who are married in that world who don't have to worry about. It's like, well, do married people qualify for this? I mean, it's still premarital sex if it's not with your spouse, but it's also infidelity. So wondering what the dynamic would be of that. I'm wondering if Travis has explored that as a thought, and that would be something to see. So it gives me a little bit of excitement about that script.
I'm quite excited about reading it as well. Even though if I'm not doing it, maybe a little Chad, maybe CC, maybe Jake, maybe other, other people in the thing. But I'm definitely going to have my own thoughts about this. Because if it's done right, even if it needs to be rewritten, if it's done right and it's actually funny, make your belly laugh funny, you've got another American Pie on your hands, and that's just a license to print money nowadays. Because let's be honest, most comedies are not really that funny. I mean, you get the odd one that is kind of funny now.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at various scripts that were comedic. We had that one, you and I script with I can't mind, it was the woman, I can't find the name of it. The high school one where there was like the closed community. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
You don't know what I'm talking about, hi. So we had that one, and I was like, if it was done as a comedic way, like a black comedy, it'd be good. But the way it's written, no. There's another Mary Sue, she's going to save everybody.
Yeah, you're talking about, I think, Two-Faced, right? That was the
that's
one.
The one. Yep, that's the one. Correct. Yeah, but that just on that log line, when you think about this, right? It's a purge for when you can only have sex once a year. That's going to have to be rated R. It's going to have to be rated R. It can't be rated anything different because young men, young ladies, they're not going to want to watch something that's a 15 or a 12 or whatever,
Oh, yeah. Now, oddly enough, the second place script is also a comedy called Playdate. And this one reminds me of the Rick Moranis film Bullies, I think it is. Rick Moranis and Tom Arnold, way back, early 90s film, where they were kids. Tom Arnold was the childhood bully of Rick Moranis, but now they're adults, and I think their kids are doing something similar. This one here, it says, when taking her daughter to a play date at a new friend's house, Alice suddenly comes face to face with her childhood bully, Katrine. An evening of seemingly polite dinner conversations and catching up turns into a night of psychological warfare as the two women reveal the scars of the past and the wounds of the present while their two young daughters played mind games of their own. So this is a chunky log line. It's actually more of a synopsis, so we'll see if they revamp the log line for the show. But this is set up to be a comedy, but I'm also worried, like, is this going to be one of those psychological head game esoteric comedies? Because it came in with 39 votes, which is a lot of votes, and not as many as the #1 script. But what do you think of this one? So it's basically like a contained movie, one location, almost stage play-ish, I would say. And it's two adult women bantering with each other through classic, I guess, female head games. I'm wondering, what's swirling in your head at this point?
Hey, Jake.
Yeah, I was thinking, reading it, it doesn't scream comedy to me. It sounds like something that would be a drama. But I think what would be good is watching the younger versions either do the opposite. Like if one was the bully and one was the victim, the kids switch. That would be something that could have a serious tone, but have comedic timing on it. That could be interesting. It is a little, when I read it, I go, wow, I have a hard time going, that's a comedy. I have a hard, unless it's all just, little laughs that are visual, of course, what's in the script, but that'd be interesting. It sounds interesting.
It just sounds like to me he's sat next to it and written about two Glaswegian or Glasgow mothers arguing. That's what it sounds like to me.
Arguing without yelling, yeah.
Yeah, there will be yelling and probably gentle swearing, but however, that's what it sounds like to me. Just two women arguing in Scotland about why their kid never done that and your kid did this. And
so instead of right, so instead of like, say, the cerebral movie of My Dinner with Andre, Playdates is more like the exact opposite of that. Instead of them talking about philosophy, it's all like, you tortured me during this year at.
I mean, if they've done it right, and done like a black comedy. Like I agree completely with Jake. It needs to be a drama, or at least dramatized, where or a bit of thriller might even be good. Where if they can drop a bit of black comedy in. Oh, you did this to me when I was a wee girl. Oh, I don't remember you. For me, that was a Tuesday. That that kind of RuPaul, that kind of nonsense, right? That'd be funny, but I don't see it as a comedy. And look, until I read it, I don't personally think it's a comedy per se. I think it's more lines of definitely what Jake said, a drama, potentially even a thriller, if they can do it right with the right people, and absolutely have the kids switch. A is the bully, B's the victim. So B's daughter's the bully, A's daughter's the victim, and that's what brings them together in terms of having this conversation about what happened in the past. But it just sounds like two Glaswegian mothers to me arguing about whose kid's better and blah 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 blah.
All right then, good thoughts there. Yeah,
the first part of it, I do like that she takes her daughter to a date and doesn't know. That's when she finds out.
Yeah,
and that does have a comedic element of oh, you're her mother. That would be kind of funny, but yeah, if it's how they go from there. So
all right. Well, the next one is actually a little bit of a controversial script. So this is called Alignment. It's written by Nathan Dotan, and this came in third. And its logline reads: a board member at a booming AI company wrestles with corporate politics and warped incentives as he tries to prevent his colleagues' willful ignorance from causing a global catastrophe. Now, this script sold late last year for a lot of money, like a huge, more than $1 million, like a huge chunk of change.
It's irrelevant to change.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. So, are you guys familiar with this movie that came out last year called Kraven the Hunter? It was directed by J.C. Chandler. So J.C. Chandler wrote and directed a movie called Margin Call in 2011. And this, some of the people that have read Alignment have said that this script is almost a word-for-word remake of Margin Call, just with AI instead of stocks. And that is what's causing some of the controversy here, because people are wondering, well, number one, why would this script sold so much when it's clearly looks like it's been either an AI version rewrote Margin Call for it to be AI as opposed to be an original thing, even to the point where some of the main characters' first names in Alignment are similar to the are identical to the character names, first names in Margin Call, even their roles and positions. So this one could be a fun script to review in comparison to the movie Margin Call, and also to see if this is one of those things that a lot of writers in Hollywood are worried about, where AI is being incorporated into the work to hit the data points of what the studio has on their spreadsheet, as opposed to actually being something like an original art. Like Margin Call was not a huge movie by J.C. Chandor, but he wrote and directed it at the time, and it was quite good for its budget and for its marketplace. And now we have, 13, 15 years later, a movie that a lot of writers who have read it and other executives who have read it are saying, I think I saw this in theaters already. It's very, very similar. It's the dynamics, character names, the fact that it's taking place in such a condensed time frame, all very interesting. So this one is one of those scripts where I'm like, I think whoever the host, whoever wants to come in to read this one, I think we'll have to read it first, then watch Margin Call after, and then see if there's actually some merit to the criticism of that a portion of Hollywood is having for this script, or if it's just maybe a jealousy because the dollar amount for the screenplay was so high, like outside of normal by like any means.
Really? That's funny.
Do you think it's like, do you personally think, personally, but professionally, do you think it's kind of plagiarism as well? He saw that, maybe got his hand in the script.
If J.C. Chandor or someone associated with that production decides to bring it up, the problem being is that first you have to prove when it comes to plagiarism in Hollywood, there's a lot of factors to go into there. The easiest one is, of course, negative financial impact on the original author. So can you prove that there's negative financial impact on the original author because of this plagiarized piece? And if so, that makes it a lot easier. If you can't prove that, then it's now going into an ethical area, which is gray area, which means it goes to arbitration. And then the people on that dais have to determine whether or not the content is close enough to be warranted as plagiarism. And if so, you have like the Harlan Ellison to the Terminator situation, right? Where James Cameron publicly in articles admitted that he got inspired by a couple of Outer Limit episodes that were written by Harlan Ellison. And as a result, that's why Harlan Ellison's name is on the credits of the first Terminator film post its theatrical release, because it's very similar to those two stories that he wrote. And also Harlan did get some money from that as a result. The other thing that was a big takeaway is, for those that don't know about that story, is at the time, Harlan Ellison, being a prolific writer and novelist in Hollywood, had access to almost every script that was going into production, whether it be independent or main studio. And for some reason, for the 2 years during production of Terminator, no one would let him read that script, and that raised a flag with him.
Oh.
And that's when he finally saw the movie, he's like, oh, I understand why nobody got me the script, because he would have raised hell over this. So that's that's something that I'm curious about with something like alignment. So yeah, that's the stuff that I had. That's the industry insider stuff of this script. Now, I'm curious. I can't wait to actually get to check that out with one of you gentlemen or anyone else in the dais. Now, I see some of the co-hosts out there in the chat. So thanks for listening in. I completely understand that you can't make it, but you guys do all have the link. So if you are able to pop in whatever moment, you're more than welcome to. But we're only going for a little bit longer because I want this to just be a nice little brief show. And I wanted, before we go any further, I just wanted to ask you guys, having read those scripts, as many as you could, not all of them, obviously, because again, not everybody has that type of time. But when you've read the scripts that you've read and the shows that you've listened to, how would you rate them compared to some of the movies that have come out in previous years based on that quality? Would you say Hollywood is going in a better direction, Hollywood's in a worse direction, or is it par for the course? What would you say your general perception would be from that?
Well, Mr. 52 weeks a year, 52 movies a year. Let's go. You go first.
Okay. You know what? It has definitely affected the way I watch movies. More specifically, the movies that people are calling the second screen, like if it's on a streaming service and somebody just puts it on while you're watching and not really. So as I'm watching, I'm going, okay, this is an interesting concept. I can see why it was made. Was this on a blacklist? So I'm almost seeing all the streaming movies and going, I halfway want to just, message you on Patreon and say, hey, was this on a blacklist, or Google it? There's a few I Googled to see if they were on a previous blacklist, because it felt like it'd be something that we would have read that would be on here, that would have gotten a few votes. It wasn't quite good enough for big budget, but also it wasn't maybe written as a big budget movie. And I guess I think I'm optimistic, because I go, well, there's a lot of original ideas out there, but maybe there's always been a flood of scripts. Maybe there's way more scripts than there ever needs to be compared to how many movies get made. Even if they're making 600 shows a year, maybe there will always be that oversaturation. But I don't want to see all the new shows just go to streaming. We're not taking a chance on going to because wouldn't this the stuff be that indie companies were looking at and going, that they would take maybe the top 5 and go, that's in our wheelhouse, we'll take that. The horror in indie films, they're going to look at those, and the of course,
Yeah, like the Blumhouse and A24s, those types of guys. Yeah, they would.
Yeah, they should be loving this and buying it up cheap and working with them and trying to work on something they could cultivate.
Well, I mean, that is usually what happens here.
But now it feels like it just goes to streaming, and
it gets lost in the weeds. Yeah,
is its own genre.
I mean, that might be the future of it because again, streaming is the ultimate convenience of entertainment. I mean, it's just like television to a degree, except with streaming, there's no commercials. You can binge on it. And because it's been way more affordable to make a home theater system in your home, it's like, why bother going out, spending, exorbitant amounts of money for the family to sit in a bunch of fairly comfortable seats, but around a bunch of people, which may or may not be good moviegoers with regards to etiquette. They might be on their phone, or they might be throwing candy, or chatting or whatever amongst themselves. Especially if it's a good movie. Like if it's a bad movie, well, you can have fun with that. I mean, but then again, that's a different experience. But you're not going to movies to go see a bad movie for the sake of it being bad. You're trying to just go and be entertained and maybe have some questions raised that you could start pondering about, that allows you to start thinking, oh, maybe, from this perspective, this is what's going on with a subject like that. Or I understand and empathize why this guy was willing to sacrifice everything to help his kid that he didn't know he had and only found out like that morning. And he was thrust with this responsibility and he embraced it wholeheartedly, but he was stumbled along the way. Like those types of stories. Those you kind of want to be in that good theater experience, but that's not always going to be the case. I mean, I've traveled around Canada and the United States. I've gone to various different movie theaters, and there are some in cities where you cannot mess around in the movie theater because the usher will come by and get you out really quick before you even really get to start. And then there's others where there's almost nobody there, like no staff there, and there's just that obnoxious group of people or pair or what have you that just ruin the experience altogether. And I think if you're paying $100 for a family plus concessions to go watch a movie, and you have that, and then you basically have to leave and complain to management, get a refund, then your night's ruined. It's like, well, you avoid all of that with streaming at home because, if your kids are acting up, you can pause the movie, do your parental duties and discipline them, and then pick up where you left off or restart, and you're not out gas or parking and the popcorn that you're eating is what you bought at the grocery store for a couple bucks as opposed to $5 or $10 for a big bucket of it.
Or a hot dog that's like this size.
Yeah.
We have
my personal thoughts on it. Sorry, Jay. My personal thoughts on what the original question was, part of the course for me personally. As a normal person, doesn't do YouTube, doesn't, have a voice like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was several excellent scripts that we will pull apart. The playlist there, obviously everyone go watch the playlist. Have your own thoughts, please. Tell us if we're right or wrong. That's what we want. And I think that predominantly it started off pretty weak, well, apart from Madden. I mean, let's be honest, it's Madden, right? Let's be fair, we'll take him away from the equation, right? But I personally, when I've read through every single script, and when I was working, and some of them were weak, and I'm like, I don't have anything nice to add to this, or like what I'm watched already. I've nothing else I can really add to conversation. I'm not bringing anything else to the conversation. Some that I've read, me and you've been on, and I've went, I quite like this, but I've given my reasons why I like it. As a normal person going to see a film, yeah, I could take popcorn, watch this with my kid. Well, no, my kids maybe the missus or a couple of mates or whatever, and go watch like Sordamundo getting ran out by a crowd of people. Well, yeah, I like that. I'd enjoy that, if it's done right. But that's the thing. Every single script was like, if it's done right. There's never like a kind of, apart from Madden, where we all kind of went, actually, you know what? It just needs a couple of rewrites and off you go. When they said Nick Cage, but I'm not a casting director. That's why I'm sitting in Glasgow in Scotland, and yous are not. So I just think that sometimes if they were done right, like a lot of the scripts could be quite good. Now, about just two wee things here right now, quickly. I'm going to agree with Matthew Ovanga. It must be an absolute goldmine of great unproduced screenplays. There absolutely is. This is the man to speak to. He'll sort you out. And John the Beard Puss in Boots made a ton of money in the theatres for good reasons. Absolutely right. Antonio Banderas. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's the real trick, right? Like how do you compete with that level of convenience? You have to do it with FOMO. You have to try and generate something that people really want to see, and there's no 100% guaranteed way to gauge that. It's really a difficult. It's like spitballing. It's just you might hit a target if you aim in the general direction, but there's no guarantee. So yeah, Jake, please finish your thoughts on that part of the theater experience and streaming.
Me?
Yeah,
sorry.
yes, please. Sorry.
So yeah, we're lucky we have a pretty good theater here that's really cheap. It's families, which, it hasn't been a problem for a while. Junior high age kids and high school age kids don't flood to the movie theater like they used to, but you just knew when not to go, and parents had just your theater would be flooded with teenagers, so you just knew when to avoid those,
Mm-hmm.
And but that's kind of part of going out, and usually we're just going out at night, and we're going out with friends, and we're just going to see a movie. Not everybody's excited about it, but some people are just okay, they just want to get out. And I just think that's something we shouldn't just take for granted, because not every place you go out to eat is fast food, and not every place you go out to eat is a high-end restaurant. And if you oversaturate an area with either, you're going to run into problems. And I just think that it's a shame if they look at these scripts, any script, and go, their goal should be, I want it to be in the theater. Maybe the only thing that they should be going realistically, what time of the year would this fit?
Mm-hmm.
When would it fit? That's the only way they should be looking at it. And then if you're doing anything short of that, then you just need to go, okay, maybe I'm a proven director, but I'm going to start building my experience making streaming movies. My goal is still to make that people wish they'd have seen it in the theater. That every bit as good. I can't imagine the people going, to me, I feel like they're admitting we're just giving up. We're going to become the second screen. We just want to be on in the background competing with your phone. And maybe that's the reality of it, but I don't think that if you're in the industry and that's your thought process, you should probably get out. Yeah, because nobody should be going, I want to be second best.
Oh, absolutely. Like
for Netflix or something. Sorry,
you definitely don't want to be competing for second place, but that's kind of how it's working at the moment. It's basic. I mean, I will say this: the only thing that's really made people want to go to the theaters that I've seen on the internet, that I've actually seen in person, are those popcorn buckets, that cheap plastic stuff.
Yes,
that's kind of funny too.
We don't get them in the UK, by the way. We do not get them. So I know several YouTubers who've had to get their American fans to actually get them for them. We don't get them.
But
we used to get them.
The thing is that it's a very strange form of merchandising for a film. It's like, hey, here's this popcorn bucket in a very peculiar shape, representative of the movie. Who cares if you like the movie or not? Come to the theater to
experience here in Scotland. And we've got very cheap cinemas. You can get a seat for what, £5. Streams went down. No, it's fine. £5, which is about, I don't know, $7, something like that. And that's per person. So you could take a family for, £20. But when you go and get popcorn, well, you best be taking a second mortgage. If you want a hot dog or a beer, or if your wife wants a wine to watch a film, well, you best be taking a third mortgage out, because they're going to fleece you. You're going to fleece you raw. And I've went to see many films. It's called, well, the cinema chains are relevant. If you're in the UK, you know the one I'm on about. Mm-hmm. But it's good. It's good viewing experience. Do you know what I mean? Every time I've been to one, even I went to see the one with the duck, Migration. I love that film. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant film, that. It's good for kids. Wayne loved it. I went to see Wicked. I didn't know it was a musical because clearly I'm a man and I've never seen a musical. And sat for that's 2 hours and 40 minutes of my life I'll never get back. Because see, when I left it, I actually quite enjoyed it. It was quite good. I was singing the song and downloaded the album for my daughter. So that's the kind of idea is the film that the dad or the family go into is gripping children is easy. Just make it nice and colourful and make it, you know, couple of bits and jumpy bits and whatnot. But getting the parents, that's the one that you need. And I've always found that, like Jake said as well, we've went out, you know, dinner, movie, have a few drinks after. You're the best party, maybe 100, 150 pounds, maybe, you know, same in dollars. By the time you're done. And you go, what did we watch in the film? Well, I can't remember. I don't know, it was something. Well, that's just a wasted night. You know, you could have just went for dinner and a few drinks. There's a few times I've went out, what did we watch? I went and seen The Terrifier 3, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's talking about it. Well, no, not at dinner, obviously, because we're no like nuts. But when we go for a few drinks, everybody's talking about it. What, did you see such and such and that bit and that bit? You know, and other people join in. What are you talking about? Oh, we're talking about this film. Oh, aye. Let's go see that. Aye, but it's really good. You should go see it. Word of mouth then spreads. There you go. That's, I think, a good movie's made in terms of keep away from like the second screen, like Netflix. If you write something for, and you know you're writing it for Netflix, then as Jake said, you should be writing something that should be on the silver screen that people pay a lot of money to see, and you should be sat there and proud. And I'm not saying that people that generally write stuff for Netflix aren't proud, but Netflix isn't like TV. It's no cable TV. It's Netflix. It's Amazon Prime. It's, you know, these different streaming services.
It's what's used to be called the straight to DVD market. That's the place where you get your start, or you go to die. There's nothing in between. The in between part is your theatrical release or your big showcase or what have you. But one of the things that you know, I'll put to this point here that Richard, Gums, that you said.
Sorry.
Don't mean to duck, is that. Yes, there are way more original scripts actually circulating around Hollywood. The Blacklist and what we do on this show covers, you know, a small portion of that. But it all comes down to, well, if the studios want to stay in business, they need to invest in things that they feel are going to generate that money. And it's harder and harder to push original films, especially the ones that we've seen in this view. Compared to you know, brands that have been successful in other mediums of sorts, whether it's like on television or in books or based on like a music video or something, or a podcast, or it's based off of a true story that's been featured in the news for several months on end. People by and large generally have less aversion to something familiar as opposed to something brand new. And that brand new thing, it's a huge gamble to whether or not people are going to like that. But with that being said, this was just really a taste, year in review, and a little bit of taste of what's expected for this coming year on the show. I want to thank Gums and Jake of 52 Movies a Year for swinging by to discuss a little bit of their thoughts on last year and the stuff that's coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be back again this Saturday to review another screenplay. Please consider jumping into the Patreon and participating there. Vote on what screenplay that's listed that you would like to see greenlit. And if you comment before the show of your thoughts on to why you enjoyed it or why you hated it, we'll read it live out here on the show and add it to part of our discussion. With that, I want to wish you all a wonderful night and greatly appreciate you all being here. Take care, guys, and never forget, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.
I didn't get my thumbs up. I didn't get my thumbs up. That was good. Thank you, Jake. That was nice to speak to you, man. That was nice.
Yeah.